This video is about my experience with the carnivore diet after an experiment that has lasted for 6 months. And I have gained some experiences, some good things and some not so good things. And I have concluded that I am not going to continue with the carnivore diet, and I'm going to give the reasons for why. So first of all, maybe I should say something a little bit about my victim story and my kind of health history. And my basic health problem is psoriasis, which I've almost have had for 50 years. So if there is something that I haven't tried, it's just because I haven't heard about it. So I have done very many different things to try to heal my skin condition with various with a lot of different results. From I have a kind of a psoriasis barometer, which goes from 0 to 10, and 0 being then completely symptom-free, and 10 is then a major outbreak where actually the whole body is covered with psoriasis. And I have been on all those levels. What I have done is also to come from level 10, where almost in a state of being invalid and could be hospitalized at any time, through food, basically, I managed to heal my skin completely within 2 months. And I've done that several times, actually. And but the only problem with that is that it leaves me with perfect skin in the end, but often I become malnourished after such a period. So it's the kind of the diet that I've basically used is some kind of what I would call a half fast. And so you cannot go and fast forever, right? And so the problem with the diet, which is basically what is called macrobiotics, for those who remember that, which is an Oriental approach with a food that is basically based on grains, beans, and vegetables, and very specific cooking and very detailed and specific knowledge about food and the medicinal use of food. So it's not just like we are going to lump all vegan diets and vegetarian diets together and say that's just one thing, because there is a big variation among vegetarian diets, and a vegetarian diet is no guarantee for a healthy diet at all. But anyway, so what I'm just saying here, that I've had so the basic problem with the macrobiotic diet has been to find a diet that works on a daily basis. And that has always been the problem, because I've always known that when I've kind of gone through that kind of cleansing phase, I need to build up the body, I need to vary the diet. And whenever I do that, the symptoms comes back to a lesser degree. And then if there is some kind of a crisis, let's say I get a flu or an infection or something, then it sometimes can completely explode into reaching level 10. Okay, so so far the macrobiotics has been a very useful tool for me, and it has worked, and it does work, but it requires an enormous amount of discipline, and it's the basic problem has been to have a completely relaxed relation to food. All right, and so I got into the carnivore diet. The first time I heard it was Jordan Peterson, who said that he had cured himself of psoriasis and depression and some other health issues through eating just meat and broccoli. And that caught my attention, but it sent me into some kind of cognitive dissonance, that it was kind of an uncomfortable information, really, because it challenged most of my concepts about food, because particularly like 30, 40 years ago, then the first thing you got to learned when you were trying to clean up your diet, that was like meat. That was the first thing you should kind of exclude from your diet. So that's one of the very positive thing about carnivore, is that it completely blows your mind. It completely destroys all concepts that you might have about food. And that is in many ways a good thing, because it gives you the beginner's mind. It gives you an open mind that in one sense, I'm willing to throw out everything I know about food and say the only thing that really matters is what works. So if I can, heal, I can heal myself through eating meat, okay, fine, okay. And so therefore, I also, give acknowledgement to all the amazing testimonials that are out there about people who have healed themselves of all kinds of diseases by following the carnivore regime. And the carnivore regime is basically only animal products like eggs and butter and meat and fish. And the essence is to eliminate or reduce carbs to an absolute minimum. And for many people, that has a completely transformative effect. And particularly people who are overweight, it's an extremely effective method to lose weight and so on. So by all means, whatever works, go for it. And so I did. But I had to wait 5 years because I got pretty much resistance when I heard Jordan Peterson mention that for the first time. But then, half a year ago, then he popped up again, and then he talked about that now he had been doing it for 5 years, and he was still, he looked good, and now he had skipped his broccoli, and now he eats only meat. And according to his daughter, who also is a carnivore, and they are on what is called the lion diet, which is only beef, only red meat. Okay, good for them. But according to his daughter, he eats 5 pounds of meat every day. 5 pounds, that's 2.5 kilograms of meat. If that is true, that is just an enormous amount of meat every day. And you have to have a good budget, particularly if you live here in Norway, where meat is outrageously expensive. But anyway, what don't you do for feeling good, right? So whatever works. So that's one thing I find very positive about carnivore, that it really, it blows all your concepts about food right out the window. There's other things, other people's experiences when it comes to food in the different end of that spectrum, is that I personally know people who don't eat at all. Okay, I'm not talking about dead people. Okay, I'm talking about people who are actually extremely vibrant and healthy. And the thing is that they don't eat maybe for a year or two or even more on a permanent basis. So that's called breatharians. And that's also a phenomenon in the food world, that people are nourishing themselves of more subtle energies like light, or what is called chi or prana, and so on. So that's if you just want to have to leave all the food concepts at the door, you might just as well also include that aspect of health and food and diets and what works and what doesn't work. So my basic attitude now is that whatever works, that is the kind of the reference point, and we can have all kinds of fancy theories about what is good food and what is healthy food and so on. Although it does have some, there are still a lot of knowledge and theories about food that is absolutely valuable, and it also is a part of these considerations that I do have around food. Okay, so what happened then was that half a year ago, I started to do the carnivore diet, and I had an immediate effect just on a daily basis. Now, I had a big steak at night, and the next morning I just felt fantastic. much more energy than I used to have, and I went for a long hike, and that was really wonderful, and so I continued, and I had very few kind of the transition into carnivore was completely easy. I had no kind of what they call the carb flu or whatever they call it, so that was, but basically because I have a fairly clean diet to start with, and so on. Yes, and so there was a whole range of real positive benefits, and my skin improved, my sleep got phenomenally much better. Um, I would go out clear, became more clear in my head. Felt lighter in my body, more energy. So all in all, that really went in the right direction. I really must say. I have a list here. What else? There was a good sleep, lightness in the body. Um, uh, yeah, anti-inflammatory, good energy. Um, Also, like things like prostate problems of frequency of urination also improved, even that I didn't expect that at all. So, and one of the really good thing about it was the always being full. Okay. So on my vegetarian experience, I'm basically hungry pretty many hours during a day. And I have to use quite a lot of willpower. So, really, in comparison to that, the carnivore diet is easy, really, because had 2 meals a day and was basically full most of the time, and just ate when there was natural hunger. And as I said, 2 meals a day, and the amount of meat that I ate was maybe around half a kilogram a day. I would say maybe something like that, half a kilogram. So I would have for breakfast, I would have 2 or 3 eggs, and I would have some meatballs or something like that, grounded beef, and then and in the evening I would have some pure meat like a steak or basically. So I would say I would a little bit, maybe 600 grams, maybe a half a kilogram. That's a pound of meat a day, and as I realized, that's very little compared to the average carnivore. I saw one woman who was like similar built as I, and she was doing, what was she was doing? She was doing 1.5 kilograms during a day. That was her kind of thing. So I think, so it is a substantial amount of meat that seems to be required, and I think I was kind of in the definitely lower end of my meat intake. But I mean, I didn't want to stuff myself, and so I was comfortably hungry. No, comfortably, not full and satisfied, and wonderful sleep, wonderful energy. So, and the skin dramatically improved, and the skin got softer, and it was like, this was really going in the right direction. And so that went on for 4 months, and I would say after actually 2 months, not much more happened. Like, it's like kind of it stagnated. So on my psoriasis barometer, I was actually down on maybe 1 or 2, right? So it was just a little bit psoriasis left. And then, and actually then for the next 2 months, nothing really didn't much more happen. There was like it just stabilized, and there wasn't kind of really any improvement. And then we that was Christmas and over winter time. Then all of a sudden it stagnated dramatically with a major psoriasis outbreak, which forced me for a short period of time to return to actually vegetarian, the macrobiotic regime to lower the symptoms. Yeah, and but still, I couldn't kind of let go of those positive effects. So apart from having a break of maybe 2 or 3 weeks, then I was back on the carnivore, to give it another shot a couple of more times. And so, but then for several reasons, I stopped doing it, and because I didn't kind of feel that it improved my condition. So I think definitely I did something wrong, and then I kind of analyzed my carnivore practice. If I do something wrong, and I think definitely I did two things wrong. And one thing was that I didn't have very much activity. I was pretty lazy in the sense that, okay, all I'm going to think about is the food. I'm going to go for a walk every day. That was my kind of physical activity. And I was lazy. I would sleep in every morning. I would sleep until I woke up. And then I would start my day with a cup of coffee in bed and just lie there and plan my day. And so I was taking it pretty easy, right? And but I felt that my body, everything worked, and so was things. So I think those two I would say mistakes was to not be physically active enough. Like I should have gotten up early in the morning and done some exercises and walks and been much more busy and had a much more kind of fixed schedule during the day. I think that would have been very positive. And also I should not have drunken my 2 cups of coffee, which what became almost like an addiction. Like I would say I'd never felt that strong need for coffee as I did during the carnivore diet. And I had the impression also for people who are doing the carnivore diet that coffee is a big thing. And I think it has to do with that the bitter taste that is in the coffee, but the body kind of actually needs that bitter taste. And so therefore there is a real craving for coffee. And I notice when I eat more varied and when I'm on this my vegetarian regime, I don't have the same craving for coffee at all. And I feel coffee has a much more disturbing effect. So on a carnivore diet, coffee was real good. It didn't affect my sleep or anything, and it just tasted wonderful. And I even also had cream in my coffee. Okay, so that was my 2 sins, and I think my carnivore project might have been more successful if I had kind of omitted those 2 things. But so therefore that was kind of my conclusion. That was the kind of the positive aspects. Another positive thing was in many ways a greater freedom. Like the carnivore is in many ways very easy. You can travel everywhere and you can always get the food. And the cooking in itself is not really cooking, right? It's just heating some meat in the air fryer usually, and so it's not really cooking at all, but it's very, very easy. So that's kind of convenient. It gives a certain freedom, okay? And so the reason I stopped doing carnivore there are several reasons. One reason is that I don't like the food. I find it disgusting. Simple as that. Just to have a meal and all there is on the plate is steak. And I even also tried to kind of vary it. So it was like, it was steak and maybe some bacon and maybe some chicken. So it was a variation of different kinds of meat. But still, it's boring and it doesn't give me gratitude. I don't feel gratitude towards the food, which is not good. On the contrary, when I eat my well-prepared vegetarian meals consisting of like millet and some vegetables and a miso soup and some beans and so on, it fills me with gratitude. Even a simple meal of just brown rice and some vegetables, it fills me with gratitude and appreciation. And my body just says, yes, that's the food I love. Okay. So I think that is fundamental. That's very, very fundamental that I can't go on eating a diet with food that I don't like. Simple as that. And so that's actually the main reason for stopping carnivore diet. And then working on with improving my macrobiotic practice, and what I'm doing is to include some of the things that I learned from the carnivore also into my vegetarian or semi-vegetarian lifestyle and diet. So Another downside of the carnivore diet is the chewing, because meat is extremely hard on your teeth. And so when you reach my age, my teeth are not that strong anymore. And definitely the chewing that is acquired has put some strain, extra strain on my teeth, and resulted in an infection in one of the root canals and so on. Not good. Okay. So, so the chewing kind of put too much pressure on the teeth, and my vegetarian regime is basically all cooked food. I don't eat salads, and so basically mostly raw cooked food. So it's very kind of easy to chew and so on. Yeah, another drawback with a carnivore is that I definitely miss the vegetables, right? And the variation in the food, and it's, as I said, it's not cooking, I mean, cooking of food is an art that people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, right? And it is have a rich variation, and a meal should consist of at least the 5 tastes. And the 5 taste is the sweet taste, it's the salty taste, it's the sharp taste, it's the bitter taste, and it's and the sour taste. That's the 5. Okay. And so that has to do with Chinese Oriental medicine, that these 5 tastes, they stimulate the different organs of the body. And so the carnivore diet only has the salty taste, and hardly any, taste besides that. So it's very deficient in taste, and it's deficient in cooking, examples like that. Okay. What else? Okay. Well, it's also, you're more dependent on the carnivore diet. You're more dependent on a butcher. You're more dependent on a shop, because, okay, even though you can have a freezer, still you have to supply, go out to hunt every day to get your meat, right? And so on a vegetarian diet, where I live on grains and beans and vegetables, I can survive for a couple of months, without going to the store, So that's a freedom that I kind of like with the more vegetarian regime. Okay, so that's my only criticism towards the carnivore diet, and by all means, if it works, go for it. And then, of course, there is also something that is not spoken very much about, is the ethical aspect of eating meat. And that has to do with my interests and my lifestyle, which I'm quite interested in meditation, in yoga, and spirituality. And it's very essential in yoga not to eat meat or reduce the amount of meat for several reasons, which I'm going to talk more about in detail, of the more subtle aspects of eating meat towards when I'm in the end of the video. I'm going to talk more about that. So, but the ethical aspect of eating meat is that it's based on violence. It's based on killing. You're actually an animal that didn't want to be killed is the result of the food on the plate. But so there is some ethical considerations that I think can be taken into account, and also the food industry, the meat industry, that is not a particularly nice scene, and there is there is no windows in the slaughterhouses for very specific reasons, because we don't like what we see there, and so on. And so that that's a kind of a plus side with the vegetarian diet, in my view, that it is less. There is less violence. You don't need to kill animals to survive. In principle, I'm not against eating meat, and I think this dentist, the American dentist Weston Price, he did some very interesting surveys around the world, investigating all kinds of tribes and natural people on what food they were eating. And he discovered that there was actually no tribes that were completely vegetarian. All natural people had some element of animal products, from fish, eggs, or meat, and so on. So I think definitely that animal products is a part of the human diet, and one should know some basic things about food on a vegetarian diet to avoid becoming malnourished. That to be malnourished on a carnivore diet is much more difficult. Okay, so that is the ethical aspect of non-killing, and also and meat. Because of the meat industry, where the animals are receiving large doses of medications and penicillin and medicines to survive their stress and their miserable condition. In some countries they are getting hormone treatments and so on, and that goes into the meat, and that really is not lessens the quality and the vitality of the meat, and makes these things will be absorbed for sure in the body. So those two things are definitely also a downside to carnivore diet, which is very little spoken about among the carnivore crowd. Okay. So that's pretty much it. But there are some more subtle aspects, and one thing is the carnivore for everybody, and it looks that way. I mean, it seems like most people can benefit from the carnivore diet. There was the blood type diet that came out around year 2000. Peter D'Adamo introduced this idea that based on his father's experience on a kind of a vegetarian place, where he saw that not all benefited from the vegetarian diet, and so he came up with the idea that according to your blood type, that if you are blood type 0, then, or is blood type O, is that what it's called? Okay, but anyway, then you are the kind of the hunter type, and then your body kind of needs more meat. And if you are blood type A or B or something like that, then you're more vegetarian inclined, and so on. And so I think that is the point. So my blood type is O or 0, and so I benefit from eating some animal products, it seems like. So that's one aspect of the carnivore diet that is maybe worth taking into consideration. But and then there is also there has been some elaborations of that variations on that kind of concept, that there are different kind of metabolic types and so on, and that's also worth pursuing to have a understanding of that. Maybe that carnivore diet is maybe better for some than others. But anyway, as I say, whatever works. That's the most important thing. So, but what I want to talk about here is that a more subtle understanding of food, and that has to do with what some basic knowledge that we have from yoga or from the Ayurveda, the Indian tradition, where there are 3 energetic conditions, so 3 qualities. It's called the gunas. And so life consists of a combination of those 3 energies. So you could say it's information, it's energy, and it's matter. And it's called sattva, rajas, and tamas. And so we're actually very familiar with those 3 energies. It's like, if you say, let's say that you're an artist and you want to create a beautiful sculpture, you have this idea, you get this inspiration of this beautiful, beautiful sculpture that you're going to make. Okay, that's sattva, that's inspiration, ideas, knowledge, wisdom, patience, calm, peace, joy, happiness. That's sattva, inspiration. And so then you say, okay, then I have to get myself a big slab of stone, right? Marble stone that I'm gonna make this, and that inertia, the matter, this huge block of stone, that's tamas, that's resistance. It's the physical world, okay, and so absolutely necessary for making a sculpture. And then when he got this big stone, then he starts to have to chop off all the leftover stone to find this beautiful sculpture that is inside the stone. And this work and this energy, that's rajas. Okay, and so this is, we go through those three energetic states. We go through during a day. Like in the morning, you might feel lethargic or tired, and there is a resistance towards getting out of the bed. Okay, that's tamas. Okay, whenever you're dull, when you're tired, when you go into denial, when you are kind of don't want to face up to life's realities, that's tamas, resistance, dullness, sleep. Well, there's a good quality to tamas because we need sleep, we need rest. Okay, that's tamas. Okay, and then there is when we're getting out of bed and we get maybe a cup of coffee and we get going, that's rajas, okay? And so we live in a very rajasic society where we're busy, working all day and then collapsing in front of the TV in the night. So it's a cycle of rajas and tamas, okay? Activity and rest and so on. But we do have moments where we meditate or we listen to classical music or whatever, or we see a beautiful scenery in nature, or we get inspired. That's sattva, okay? And so we have, and that's what we really live for. We live for having peace and quiet and joy and happiness in our lives. That's sattva, okay? And so a spiritual practice or a yoga practice is to cultivate those, particularly the satvic condition. That's the kind of, that keeps the mind peaceful, calm, harmonious, and it's the door opener to the spiritual world. And so the point here when it comes to food is that food can be classified according to the gunas, according to the qualities. So there is tamasic food and rajasic food and sattvic food. Okay, so if you eat like overcooked food, fatty food, bad food, junk food, and so on, pizza and beer and so on, you get dull and lethargic, and you get tamasic. Okay. And so your thinking is not going to get clear. You're not going to get inspired, and you're not going to feel joyful and happy and so on, bouncing around. Okay. And so that's tamas. So therefore we want to avoid that type of food. Okay. And so, but if you're a businessman or you in a competitive area, you need this kind of aggressive edge. And so therefore you need to eat rajasic food, which is stimulant food. It's meat, it's eggs, it's salt, it's coffee, alcohol, strong spices, whatever, and gives you this kind of aggressive edge. Okay, look at Jordan Peterson. He seems pretty angry. He has this. He used to look much more mellow and soft, but now I think he comes like forward as pretty angry, and that seems to be, in my view, an effect of eating a lot of meat, that he is very rajasic. Okay, and so, but then the sattvic food is grains, vegetables, basically a vegetarian diet. Traditionally, dairy products also is considered sattvic. And so that's the reason why in yoga they put great emphasis on a vegetarian lifestyle, because it produces much more sattva in your mind, and it makes you more peaceful, and it's easier to meditate, and you get more interested in meditation. So I've had periods of my life where I've kind of been standing in front of my bookshelf after a period of eating a lot of meat and wondering, well, who's this idiot who bought all these crazy books, And so I experienced that then on a more kind of standard Norwegian diet of meat and potatoes and so on, I kind of lose interest in spirituality and meditation and so on. Not good if you have those inclinations, as I do. Much can be said about the gunas, or the three qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas. And one thing is that we also have a different constitution. We're born with variations of these qualities. That means that some people are more rajasic, some are born more satvic, and some are born more tamasic. So we have these inherent qualities in our constitution. So that means that we will also be attracted to different kinds of food according to our constitution. So there is a difference between the constitution that we are born with and the condition that we obtain through our lifestyle and eating. But that's one of the things that actually surprised me on the carnivore diet, that I expected to lose my satvic qualities and be much more rajasic. And I would say that didn't really, just to a smaller degree, that happened. I was not interested in meditation when I was on the carnivore diet, but I did get quite interested in classical music. And so I would have in the evening, I would listen to a piece of classical music, a concert or two, a symphony by Beethoven or whatever, and prioritize that even before watching a movie. Okay. So that was an improvement, and that was a big surprise on the carnivore diet, that it didn't leave me too rajasic and too tamasic. I expected that. And I think it has to do with the combination of when you have only proteins and fats, and you don't combine it with carbs. It's the combination of proteins and carbs that makes that has this more kind of tamasic and rajasic effect. But that's one of the main reasons why I quit the carnivore diet, is because it doesn't jive with a more spiritual lifestyle of meditation and going for a more sattvic quality. But it's quite subtle, it's just, you don't kind of observe it from one meal to the next, but it has an effect over time, definitely, that it changes your whole mental outlook and your whole inner what shall I say, experience. But also what is important is that vegetarian diet and vegan diet is being kind of lumped together in one big concept. And so the thing is that there are very many ways to eat a vegetarian diet, and in my view, also many wrong ways to do it. And what is actually characteristic for carnivore, that there is a lot of people who has been vegan and become completely malnourished. And when they then turn to carnivore, it's a revolution. They get their energy back, they get their health back, they get their spirits back, and so on. And so that's definitely a very, very good step in the right direction. But it can also be that their vegetarian practice was faulty, simple as that. They didn't know about what to make, how to make kind of nourishing and good vegetarian food, simple. And I think therefore you have to go to traditions, particularly in the East, where there are age-old traditions for having more vegetarian-based food, which you find in Ayurvedic cooking, or you find in like Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, and so on. But I do, so now I eat, as I said, basically the macrobiotic regime, and I do include ghee, which is clarified butter, and I also do include meat broth. I think that's very, very important to use meat broth. And so I'm not 100% vegetarian, and I kind of follow the advice of Western Price. And I would also include, maybe some chicken every once in a while, and fish. And it's important just to also simply listen to your body. It's very, very essential, So if my body craves a steak every once in a while, I will go for it, But still, I will be observant to my kind of satvic qualities. I think also when it comes to the vegetarian regime, it's not only you can't eat yourself into heaven. It's your lifestyle is. I mean, it's important to get up in the morning. It's important to have a daily routine of regular meditation and regular practice and so on. So now what I do now every morning is I live in the forest here, and there is a lake. So I have a walk every morning for 20 minutes where I have a morning bath in the lake and so on. That's really refreshing. And then I do my meditation and my spiritual practice and so on. And I also have a session in the afternoon where I meditate. So actually in my period of my life, I would like actually to increase my meditation as much as I can. And so therefore the food is very, very important, because as I say, the satvic quality of the food is essential, and it's also pretty essential to love the food that you eat and say that really harmonizes with my body, and also my ethical views that I don't think the way we treat the animals are not very good. So I'm really happy to not contribute to that kind of scene of being dependent on meat. So I consider meat a kind of a luxury, and by all means, I think some of the meat are definitely good for us. But I remember it was Paul Pitchford who has written an amazing book called Healing with Whole Foods, which has sold in 700,000 copies. It's amazing. It's a thick book. And I saw him personally, and he said that meat might be good for me, but I abstain from it for ethical reasons. And I think I highly respect that point of view, definitely. So that was my kind of take on my experiment with the carnivore diet, and my thoughts on how food affects us, and that there is still more to learn here, and it's important to keep an open mind and not get fixed on a particular diet, and that's because that's quite easy, because that very often happens when you make a change. Just the process of making a change it can often be healing in itself, because you are kind of changing a pattern. And so many people can experience that particularly when they go for raw foods, for instance. They've been eating unhealthy for a period, and all of a sudden they eat just salads and fruit, and they feel amazing, okay? And then they tell themselves, oh, wow, now I know how I should eat for the rest of my life. And so finally, this works. But the thing is that everything changes, and so the raw foods will work for a while, but then you won't get enough. You've been just cleansing your body, and you're not getting enough that is building up the body. And so you need to change and adjust. You also have to consider your health condition. So when the health condition changes, you also maybe need to adjust the food. And also according to climate, when it's cold outside, you need to adjust the food, and when it's warm, you eat lighter, and so on. So that has to do with being more flexible and not getting too fixed on a diet that can work for a certain amount of time, and then if it doesn't work anymore, then you have to adjust. That's to be flexible, and diet food is a big spectrum, and health is much more than just what you put on the plate. It's your emotional status, it's your relationships, it's your outlook on life, and so on. It's your spiritual connection. So there's a whole range of things that need to be taken into consideration if you're sick and you want to heal yourself. Okay, so I'm still working on it, and so that's why we're here on the planet Earth, for sure, is to work on our problems, to work on our issues, and learn from this amazing experience. So it has been fascinating to do the carnivore experiment. I consider it over after 6 months. And I have kind of deepened my understanding of food, and have gained some very positive experiences indeed. So that being said, that was kind of my take on it, and so why I don't do the carnivore diet anymore, and that's it. So have a nice day.